How did you get involved in golf? Did you begin as a child? What brought you to golf?
Well, I had a mother who was a very famous player when I was a kid back in Ohio, and I played some during my early years, but not much until I really graduated from college. Basically, through my collegiate career, I swam and played baseball, and after I got out of college, I toured the United States as a national secretary for my college fraternity. Stanford was one of my stops, so I knew a little bit about Stanford in the late 40s and early 50s, and I never really considered, coaching golf at all. It just sort of came about. I was a director of athletics for many years down at Robert Louis Stevenson School in Pebble Beach, among other stops, and I had a very close association with a wonderful young guy up here named Doug Single, and I used to call Stanford when I was down at Robert Louis Stevenson School for his advice as to who might be an athlete and also a graduating student from Stanford that I could hire to be on the coaching staff down there at Robert Louis Stevenson. And it was sometime after that, Doug asked me he told me that he was going to become the director of athletics at either Northwestern or the University of Virginia. And if he got one of those jobs, would I come and take over the golf program? And I said, well, call me. And it turned out the day after he was announced as the director of athletics at Northwestern, he called me up to see if I would, I'd been assistant basketball coach down at Stetson at the time in Florida, if I would come up to Northwestern and take over the golf program there and get going. And I did, and it was a very lucky thing to have happen in my life. And I had some good players, a couple of All-Americans, 2 or 3 guys who went on the tour. And then after I'd been at Northwestern for 6 years, Stanford called up to see if I'd come out here and take over the golf program here. And luckily I did, and then I was off and running in golf.
When did you come here as golf coach?
Came here in 1987.
87. And you coached until
2000.
2000, and then Jeff Mitchell succeeded you, is that it?
Right, I retired in 2000.
Conrad came in after Jeff, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So lots of lucky occurrences in my life, and as I went along through coaching and some athletic administrations and things of that nature. But the luckiest break of all was obviously to be able to come here and coach.
What was the state of the golf program when you came here?
It was okay. Great kids. 2 or 3 guys on the squad here had been boys that I had tried to recruit at Northwestern, and they obviously came to Stanford for lots of reasons. Not that Northwestern was a bad choice, but it was a good choice for those kids. And then I wound up here, and the boys were still in school. They were all sophomores when I arrived here. Brad Benbrook, Brad Jundeff, other players. And so it was a lucky thing for me to come into a group of guys like that. And we had a big tryout my first year of all sorts of people, and I kept, I think, 12 or 14 guys on the squad. It was not great golf. A lot of guys could shoot 76 and 77, but it took a while to get them into the short game program. They really didn't know much about that, or were not interested in, actually. So it was a little bit of a struggle there in the beginning to get them all involved in the short game and various aspects of it, so we could shoot some decent scores. And about halfway through the year, we started coming along. And they bought into the program. Great kids, really good students, guys that I enjoyed working with. So it was a nice start here.
That makes a segue into your philosophy of coaching. How does a university golf coach coach golf? I mean, what sorts of things do you look at? Do you tailor it to each individual player? I mean, there is some of that, I'm sure.
Well, in the very beginning here, it's obviously academics. So that was a blessing. And I really felt as though some of the coaches, other coaches on the staff here, thought it was a major handicap. I found it a blessing, because what it eliminated me from having to do was go all over the country and look at a bunch of guys play golf. If I got in the transcripts in the beginning and saw 4.0 or 3.8 and good SAT scores, and also a player of some sort, well, that made it, we could really limit the field. My philosophy of coaching is just take each individual guy, take a look at his swing. I didn't mess around much with guys in their tried to adapt their swing to scoring. And it comes down to the short game, obviously. And when they bought into that, it was a relatively easy thing to accomplish, and we became a pretty good team right away.
Describe the short game program that you developed or worked with them on. What did you have them do, for example?
Well, we took the green way out there in the corner of the golf course, which was the old fourth hole, and that had been done away with. And I had some money in one of my budgets here, so I totally renovated that place out there, so we could go out there and be by ourselves. You had uphill shots, side hill shots, bunker shots, over the bunkers, downhill, and everything. And in our spring quarter, each of the last probably 5 or 6 years that I was here, we really had some players. We would go out there early in the morning at 7:30 and work on our short game for 2 hours. Every aspect of it. Not putting, because it was really a green that was a tough green, but not. We hit so many shots in there that it was made putting irrelevant. We worked on every shot every day, and it was interesting. Some of the qualifying rounds, they would their score didn't count in qualifying some rounds until they were off the green someplace, and then I started to keep track. And in qualifying some of those practice rounds, they'd hit their second shot on the green. Okay, that was fine, but then we dropped the ball 30 or 40 yards short of the green or someplace, and now they start to keep score. And so that it made sense. These guys are all smart, and it made sense to them to do it that way. And once they saw their scores getting down into the 73 and 74 range, which was okay for us at that time, they bought in, and away we went.
And putting, what was your approach to putting?
Well, we spent hours and hours on 3 and 4 foot putts, and we spent some more time on 40 and 50 footers.
That's why I was going to ask. One of the things I'd heard about you was that you said that your team could practice any kind of putting they wanted to, but what they had to practice were 40 footers and 4 footers.
Yeah, that was the deal.
Well, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
If you
And
can
we're really
get 40 feet within 4 feet, and if you can make 4 feet, then you're not going to 3 putt.
If you just done them enough and read every putt, every time they putted those early years there, they read. They'd putt the ball and they'd get back and read it again, reread it, and reread it, and reread it. One really interesting thing occurred at the West Regional Playoffs down in Albuquerque one year, and in Albuquerque they have a lot of big storms, and so one day we were all rained out, and we were playing with Arizona and Arizona State that day, and we were in this huge maintenance building that's pouring down rain. We were in there for a couple hours, and just before we went back out to play, North Idaho was playing for Arizona State, came over to me and wanted to talk about turning pro and what was the good procedure and stuff like that. We get all through with this conversation, and he finally says, "Hey, Coach, can I tell you something about your team?" I said, "Sure, what's up?" He said, "Well, we all want you to know, we always think we've got you, but we never do." And I mean, that made a big impression on me. To have this young player tell me that even in mental play, that we were good enough in the short game that it disturbed them, because they were, in some cases, better players, but we could get up and down, and that was a big lesson for me to learn. That we were spending the right time doing the right stuff.